Pepe, welcome to we call this countercurrents. Glad to glad to have you, my new but great friend.
Enormous pleasure to be with you, Larry. And greetings from Southeast Asia, from Bangkok after sunset. So
Yeah.
the night still young.
You remember the first time we met was when we both arrived in Moscow in December. And so you were at the desk, hotel desk checking in. And so
Yes.
I got in, I'm walking out and I'm standing there going, gee, he looks like Pepe Escobar. And you
And
turned
it's funny
around.
because he was in a former American hotel at the Intercon.
Was that a former American hotel?
Yeah,
Okay.
you used to be the Intercon, part of the Intercon, and now it's owned by a Kazakh guy, probably.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was it was funny. The first morning going down for breakfast, I thought I'd landed in Beijing. Looked around, all these Chinese. I was going, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Hey, so first question for you. Uh,
Yes.
what's been the reaction there in Thailand from what you've seen and your other contacts to the attempted assassination of Trump? How's that
Wow.
playing out in the world?
Not only here, Larry, across ASEAN and China. So I'm going to Hong Kong tomorrow. I'll be following the last 2 days of the plenum in Beijing in Hong Kong. It's better to follow in Hong Kong because you have margin of maneuver. It's not too regimented, and the flow of information is fantastic. Well, between Hong Kong and ASEAN, especially here, some echoes from Indonesia as well. Wow, game changer, and and with a very interesting uh, angle, which is an angle, especially in China and Japan, and also here. For instance, yesterday in a new mega mall here, I saw my first Trump T-shirt.
Really?
It's already here. Can you believe it, Larry, that they started making these shirts in Guangdong province on Sunday morning? They started to export the T-shirts Sunday night, Monday morning. And on Monday, they were already here,
Wow.
Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Amazing. So it's a pop phenomenon. Apart from everything, and by the way, your excellent discussion with Ray, with Judge Knapp, that was quite something. Apart from it's a pop phenomenon. And obviously, from the point of view of people in ASEAN and in Hong Kong as well, and even the Chinese Weibo, where Trump became a mega meme. Some of the memes are 500 million views, just to
Wow.
give an idea.
Yeah.
500 million views. And it's already, they made a fabulous anime in Japan, which is circulating all over Asia as well. So it's a pop phenomenon. So from the point of view of people in East Asia or in Southeast Asia, he already won the election.
Hmm.
So obviously, if we read, let's say, the equivalent of mainstream media around here, for instance, the South China Morning Post in Hong Kong, the Bangkok Post here, the Jakarta Post in Indonesia. Of course, they try to an equilibrium game between U.S. mainstream media and some more critical views, right?
Right.
So, the fascinating aspect is the popular appeal. In fact,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's
That.
he's now bigger than Taylor Swift.
uh, Not as good looking, but
Not as good looking, exactly.
because I said we haven't seen him in a dress, so let's see how that goes. He has had always that ability to attract ratings. I mean, that's been sort of the weird thing about him. He gets ratings, and um, but there is that lack. I call it the lack of an ideological center in terms of
Yes.
he does not have a philosophical thematic worldview other than, hey, we're going to make America great and let's we can negotiate anything. And
Yes,
uh,
because he thinks like those guys who sell carpets at the Istanbul Bazaar,
Yeah, no, I think that's a great.
Yeah, but he doesn't think strategically big picture.
No,
Not
not
at
at
all.
all.
Especially with concepts. It's never a question of concepts. It's always a question of, okay, what we can do next. Very practical, very result oriented, right?
Have you given any thought to how will this change him? In other words, when you have a near-death experience and you got it looks like it was a 5.56 round cracking off near his ear. I know that would, you sort of see your life pass before your eyes. Do you think it'll change him, or do you think it'll still be the same?
You know what, Larry? Did you watch first day of the Republican convention?
A little bit
Did
of
you?
it, a little bit.
I was watching it this morning, and you could tell by his body language, by his look, by the air of how come I'm here? I should not be here. I should be dead.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the way he looked at the crowd with a mix of tenderness and enormous appreciation.
Hmm.
So you can see right away that his body language is completely different. Very impressive. This proves that he understood what happened.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
had time to process it already. After more than 48 hours, 3 days, you have time to process it. And he did.
Now, has the foreign reaction to what I call the failure of the Secret Service been significant, or are they inclined to believe that that this was a deliberate cock up by the Secret Service? How's that? What's the foreign reaction on that part?
Wow. How come this woman still have a job, Larry?
Oh,
How
yeah.
come? By the way, she came from being an executive at Pepsi. What the
Yeah.
hell?
Frito-Lay to be precise. If you need some
Yeah,
corn chips, she can hook you up.
exactly.
Oh my God. Yeah.
By the way, have you had any confirmation of that information posted by one of the counter snipers saying that? Do you have any confirmation about that?
No, it's not true. What I've picked up is it appeared on 4chan, and
Yes.
so it looks like this is a fabrication. Uh, but
Mm.
that one sniper, they do need to sit him down and and both do a deposition, interview him,
Yes, yes.
because I don't know. Have you ever shot a long range rifle? And uh,
Kalashnikov doesn't
but
qualify
but
now.
but looking through a scope that's got
Yes,
a 10.
in a range here in Cambodia.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know what it's like that when you put your cheek down on the stock of the rifle and you're looking through that optic, and it's highly magnified. You can't. It's not like your normal vision where you look down range and you see something and then you can look through the glass and immediately see it. You have to actually move it around and get it focused. And then you
Mhm.
can tighten it up on a very particular part of, in this case, this guy's body. Well,
Mm.
when you're looking at the video, and my buddy Chris Whitcomb, the retired FBI HRT guy, pointed this out. Um,
Mm.
that's why you see the sniper, he's looking, then he comes up and looks above the scope, and then sees the shot and goes right back down and cranks it off. That tells you they had that guy already
They
scoped.
had yes, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it was, so they were watching him, and I'm sure that there are communications that were going back and forth. The other bit of news that came out yesterday, I don't know if you had a chance to see that, is it
Uh-huh.
turns out that the local police department had a SWAT team inside that building.
Inside the building.
Inside the building. Now, one story I heard, and it's not confirmed, is that they were supposed to be on the roof, but the roof was too hot, so they went down into the building. Now, I
Mm.
I could actually believe that. I've been on a shooting platform that's been in the sun, and we had a thermometer to gauge the temperature. It was 160 degrees. Yeah, on the roof. And but we're in the Florida sun too. That's like Thailand sun.
Right.
But so I can understand. Yeah, it was so hot. On the other hand, that shooter, the guy that he's crawling across that hot roof and he's got a t-shirt on. I mean, yeah, I'm sure he's burning his arms for
Absolutely.
starters. But anyway, is the fact that these three SWAT guys were supposedly inside the building, then those snipers, counter snipers who are up on top, they're asking the question, who is this guy? Is he one of them? Is
Exactly.
he somebody else? And so I'm sure there's radio traffic going back and forth between them and what's called the Tactical Operations Center, the TOC. Because you basically got an incident scene manager. You got somebody who's supposed to be in charge. But still, major screw up. Major screw up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So are you hearing from any from Thai and other people that you're in contact with that they do, is it are they having trouble accepting the fact that the United States is that screwed up, or they're going, well, this is just sort of another sign of what the United States has become?
There are all sorts of conflicting analysis, including the fact that this was a setup.
Mm-hmm.
This is heavily predominant in Chinese social networks. Across, dialogue, inter-ASEAN dialogue, of course, especially among people who are not exactly fifth columnists for the Americans, no? Like in Singapore or in the Philippines, And of course, interesting, Iran and West Asia. Of course, the internet in West Asia, of course. Everybody seems to be totally convinced that this was a setup.
I can't rule that out because
we cannot. Yeah.
I mean, because the story is that this kid, so he took his father's gun, and then he went that day and they're saying that he bought a ladder that day, and then drives out to the fairgrounds with the ladder.
With the ladder.
With the ladder. So first you got to unload the ladder and carry the ladder over to the building, and nobody asks you, hey, what are you doing?
What exactly?
And then he goes back to his van, supposedly, and picks up a rifle.
And the van was far away from the venue, right?
Yeah. I think it was about a 200-yard walk. I mean, he wasn't just parked in the parking lot next to the building. So it just, a lot of things don't add up.
Don't add up. Yeah.
But that miracle of just the fact that if Trump had not turned his head, that movement to the side, he'd be dead.
He would be dead. Exactly.
Well,
that's the magic confluence of the trajectory of the bullet and his head movement. They happened to coincide.
Yeah.
How do we explain that? It's chance. Yeah. Of course, it's a twist. Bob Dylan would say twist of fate. Well, a simple twist of fate.
my old Marine Corps buddy and boss and mentor, now dead, but he always had. He was in Vietnam twice as a Marine officer. He called it the fickle finger of fate, but he always added another
beautiful
F.
Image.
He always added another F word in there. So it's the fickle, the other F word, finger of fate. And
beautiful alliteration. Wonderful.
Yeah. So let's move then from, in connection with this assassination, all the big news again yesterday was the selection of J.D. Vance as a vice president.
Exactly.
Now, I wrote a piece last night saying basically this was like a kick in the testicles, those free kick in soccer, only Zelensky standing like this, and they kicked the ball and it hit in the inappropriate place, because J.D. Vance he's one of the few voices in the Senate that's been against the war in Ukraine.
Against the war, right. Yeah. But I heard two things yesterday, Larry, that were Okay, it's not the cat out of the bag because this cat is already out of the bag. He said that China is the main existential threat, and
Okay.
he said that something has to be done about Iran. That's not good. I interpret it as the war against the BRICS is going to change focus. Instead of BRIC Russia, it's going to be BRICS, China, and Iran. And this is not good at all.
Yeah.
And this is how it's being interpreted in Beijing and in Tehran. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and that I agree with you. That is, um, I think he's both in some aspects pandering to his electorate because that's sort of that's the general view of Americans. It's crazy, but you know, you try to talk to people and they've got this image of, Imperial China marching around the world. I'm going, can you give me that
Well,
list of those countries they've invaded, please?
exactly. So this means that this avalanche of propaganda actually works, no? In public with American public opinion on China.
Well, I think on JD Vance too. I guarantee Vance is a smart guy. And
He's
he
a
co-
smart guy. Yeah,
and his story. He didn't come out of a wealthy, entitled family.
exactly.
Uh,
He
and
studied, went to Yale. Yeah,
his
actually studied hard. Yeah.
relatives that were involved with drug abuse and poverty. So it's a great story on that part. But this um, I call it the propaganda effect here in the United States to
Mm.
perceive Iran as they're this ultimate evil empire that is out to destroy us.
Yes,
And
exactly.
China too. China too.
Well, China is crazy because even here in Asia, the fifth columnists are all over the place and on mainstream media all over the place. For instance, the South China Morning Post, which I always refer to as an example. I lived there. I was a subscriber. I used to read it every day. And 80% of their foreign policy coverage and columnists are against China. And totally uncritical. It's like they got the press release from the massive American embassy in Hong Kong, and it's still the same thing. And it was when Jack Ma was the owner.
Mm-hmm.
It never changed. In fact, it used to be much more, I would say, impartial with the old owner, Robert Kwok, a Malaysian Chinese entrepreneur. But this was in the 80s and 90s, a long time ago. And this is read by all the ruling class in Hong Kong. It's very dangerous. The Straits Times in Singapore, exactly the same thing.
So
So
go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say,
Go ahead.
so with the expectation now built in, I think a lot of people are assuming Trump's going to become president.
Yes.
Now, I think that's still far from guaranteed, just because of the corruption on the electoral process and all the cheating that goes on. But um, the fact that now Biden is fully, the whole Biden charade is now exposed, and
Exposed.
the ones who perpetrated it are abandoning him. Uh, let's just assume Trump goes ahead. What do you perceive as sort of the do they see Trump as somebody that's going to be more reasonable to deal with, or do they think it's still going to continue to be business as usual with America on this inevitable march towards conflict?
Well, the key angle, the key aspect, and the key puzzle is how Trump is going to deal with NATO. Let's say, it would be slightly different from NATO nowadays, literally under the control of the Dems or the Dem blob. Let's put it this way.
Yeah.
So there will be some fine tuning regarding Russia, of course. Like, I don't see Trump listening to those Baltic chihuahuas and those rabbit poles every day. Or even his relationship with the new NATO Secretary General, the Dutch Gouda, the rotten Rute, as some of my
rotten
friends
route,
call it.
yeah.
Rotten Rute. So it's not going to be as close as the binding combo with Stoltenberg, no? But the thing is, will he see NATO as basically a cash cow? Okay, at least 2% of GDP, all of you. Otherwise, I'm going to sanction or something, you know.
Right.
Or is he going to trim NATO vis-a-vis Russia, but engage into what NATO already has been saying on the record and on their declaration after the last summit in DC, by the way, that they're going after China explicitly.
Right. This is
so this is the big fine-tuning. Yeah?
Well, this is what the Yogi Berra, the old New York Yankees catcher, used to say. This is deja vu all over again.
This is deja vu all over again.
And the reason I say that, and you're sitting there in Thailand, and I think a lot of people who are going to watch this video, if they're younger than 50, they have no memory of this. SEATO,
No,
SEATO, Southeast
nobody
Asia
knows what
Treaty
SEATO
Organization.
is. Exactly.
Yeah, because it used to be based in
Used to be
Thailand.
based in Thailand. Exactly.
Yeah. So,
But
that was, again, that was what, let's call it NATO light. I mean, that's exactly, they were doing then what they're talking about doing now. Only this time, instead of going after the communists in Vietnam, they're going to go after the mother lode, China.
But I've been listening to some fascinating stuff here, Larry, these past few days, especially on Thai-China connections and the very difficult position of Thailand vis-a-vis the US as well. The US is here en masse, of course. Investments, tourism, pressure, all sorts of pressure over a very important member of ASEAN. And I got confirmation from a really, really good source that the relations between the Thai monarchy and the Communist Party of China couldn't be better or
Really?
stronger. They are now. This is something I'm sure very few people in the West know.
Mm-hmm.
So they are, especially the king, the king is a fascinating character, because I cannot say that as a foreigner in Thailand, but let's say that for many people in Thailand, he always has been too controversial compared to his dad, who was worshipped as a living saint, in fact. But he's very, very smart. People who are around him, people who he talks to, which are not many, in fact, and foreign policy as well. Do you know, by the way, and maybe this is a scoop for you and for our audience, do you know who advised the current Thai government to apply to become a member of BRICS?
No.
The Thai monarchy itself.
Oh, really?
This is enormous because it comes from the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's not these governments here. Thai government is a mess. Everybody knows that. Coup, counter coup, crazy coalitions. But this is the king's advising the government. Look, this is in Thailand's national interest. So this is fascinating. This is a game changer in terms of ASEAN. Sooner or later, is going to have an enormous weight inside BRICS because Malaysia has already applied officially. So we have Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand, the three most important ASEAN members. Can you imagine they could all get at the same time inside BRICS? This is beyond a game changer for the whole region, for the whole of Southeast Asia, East Asia, the whole region, in fact.
Well, one of the, I don't know if you've seen in the United States, they've resurfaced the theme of that Russia's interfering in the U.S. election.
Yeah.
And Thailand stands as one of the clearest examples of how extensive and vast is the U.S. interference
Wow.
in the domestic politics of Thailand through, National Endowment for Democracy and all these other front organizations that are ostensibly to promote democracy, but really are there to present the U.S. position and try to get the ties to do what the United States wants.
Or the American candidate, no?
Right. So are you starting to see any pushback reaction to that, or are they just sort of ignoring it and going along with it?
Here, let's say ignoring it. It's very interesting because the current government here, it's a made up something that nobody can actually define. The guy who won the elections, he was prevented from forming a government, essentially. So this current government, this current prime minister, is basically a taxing conduit,
Yeah.
Taxing is, and taxing, as we all know, he has very close relations with the Americans. And the Americans always cultivated taxing. Especially his populist tendencies, Taxing was very popular because he used to go to the north of Thailand, for instance, and distribute cash to people, literally, literally.
The Robin Hood strategy.
Robin Hood strategy. He goes to a Thai village and cash for everybody. So, but people don't pay too much attention to these come and go governments. For instance, when Taksin's sister was prime minister here, I was living here at the time. People say, okay, she's good looking, but she's dumb. That's it. She's not going to change anything in Thailand. And in fact, she didn't, But they pay a lot of attention to signs from the monarchy, which are, because they are sparse, when there is a sign coming from the monarchy, everybody pays attention. And, to have this confirmation that Thai-China relations are very, very strong, this is enormous. So the Americans, of course, they are worried because their strategy of trying to drag some ASEAN countries to, annexes to Quad, AUKUS, and all that crap is not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And especially because in terms of trade and commerce, I'm sure a lot of people in the US know about that. The major trading partner of all ASEAN 10 is China.
Right.
You're not going to pick a fight with your number one trading partner, obviously. Here, it's amazing. The place where I am here, all the towers around me, across the street, my street is the Deutsche Bank Tower, which is basically empty because everybody left. They fired everybody. But on the other side, there are other 3 or 4 towers, office towers, full, lots of offices. They're owned by Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the prime land in Bangkok. It's owned by the crown, of course, most of it, and then they sell it for a fortune. And here you have important embassies like the American and the Dutch embassy, 5 minutes from here, office towers, big hotels like the Meridian or the Conrad, etc. And most of these buildings are owned by Chinese.
Yeah, I learned something, and this is relevant to Thailand, 20 years ago when I was doing product counterfeiting investigations down in the Cologne Free Trade Zone in Panama.
Okay.
And when you get into the Cologne Free Trade Zone, I mean, at that time it was the second largest free trade zone in the world outside of Hong Kong, and it was a walled city, and inside the city there were merchants, and they weren't Panamanians, they were Middle Easterners, Muslims, and
From
Jews.
Persian Gulf, everywhere Persian Gulf.
And a lot out of Lebanon, actually.
Lebanon, of course.
And then there were also the let's call them the Southeast Asians and the Chinese. But the counterfeiting was done. The people that were sort of in charge of it were out of Western India, the Sindhis.
Wars.
And I guess that's where I learned that the saying was in India that if you're walking through the jungle and you encounter a cobra and a Cindy, kill the Cindy.
Kill the sin. Perfect.
Now, but what was fascinating is they literally they went around. They represented a variety of companies, and they'd go to somebody and say, "Hey, do you want to buy a coffee maker? You want to have a coffee? We'll knock off an Oster product, for example, or pick a Sunbeam, whatever your name brand product is." And they take the orders, and the people could select the quality, but then it was shipped back, and then the production was being done in Thailand or Indonesia or Malaysia, and there was sort of this international, I'll call it informal network, because
Yes.
they're not organized like corporations where they've got established offices and they've got a public face. But boy, this is down below the surface, and it's huge. And so, yeah, I can see that going on in Thailand.
No, here's amazing. Larry, I would say this is one of the unofficial nodes of the multipolar, multinodal world, because every community on the planet is represented here, and they're doing business here.
Mm-hmm.
You see everybody from West Africa, from Northern Africa, from the Sahel, Persian Gulf, everywhere. Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Iraq, lots of Iraqis, lots of Iranians who come here to do business, lots of Central Asians, Russians, Indians, from North India, South India, Kerala, you name it. It's absolutely outstanding. And last week they took me to a new Uyghur restaurant.
What is
which
that?
I thought was literally in Xinjiang.
Okay.
The two cooks were Uyghurs who live here. The girls were serving. They were Muslims, and some of them were Uyghurs as well. And surrounded in the same area, it's an Indian neighborhood. So you have Northern Indian restaurants, Kerala restaurants, etc. And in the middle, you see a Muslim, Western China Muslim restaurant. And you see traders from everywhere going there. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, no, just out of curiosity. So, what kind of food? I mean, what are the dishes, the specialties?
Well,
you're making me hungry here too, by the way.
Larry, I'm a big fan of Central Asian food. I am a fanatic for Central Asian food. They have their own noodles with vegetables and meat, dry noodles.
Uh-huh.
And they have a version with soup as well. And little burecas, equivalent to the burecas that you find in the Middle East. Excellent salads. But you're eating like you're eating in Western China or in Central Asia. And they have, of course, the Uyghur equivalent of the plov. Plov is the Central Asian risotto. Let's put it this way. Very, very rich, with meat, vegetables, eggs, onions, you name it. Fascinating and excellent because the cooks are Uyghur. The taste of the food was amazing, absolutely amazing. The other day, I went to a Persian restaurant, the oldest Persian restaurant in Bangkok. You eat like you are in Isfahan.
Really?
And fascinating. You see the Shiite community in Bangkok. You have Thai Shiites. The Thai Shiite community in Bangkok, they go there because they know that the food is excellent, is halal and first class. You see? So it's fascinating because the Thais are such great cooks from every region, and because they have this gastronomic finesse, they use restaurants here as places to meet and places to do business.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something very similar to what the Chinese do. In Beijing, most Beijing restaurants are business restaurants. In Hong Kong, every Hong Kong restaurant is a business restaurant because people go there to clinch deals. Here's the same thing. But the diversity that you find here, you don't find anywhere else in Asia. That's what makes it so fascinating.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. Now, I've noticed, and when we were last together, we talked a little bit about this, but there
Yes.
has been a definite shift in how the United States deals with other countries over the last, particularly during the Biden administration, of what I call bullying, threatening
Bullying. Yes.
and trying to intimidate other countries. Are the Thais starting to react to that too and go and saying, what's wrong with these Americans?
ASEAN as a whole, Larry, and that's what makes it so big. For instance, in St. Petersburg, this is something that I told the people here, and they were pissed. I said, did you know that at the St. Petersburg Forum, there was a session, Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN, and was wonderful. Full of people, very interesting session. And on stage, we had Myanmar, Philippines, Laos, and Cambodia. And then the Thai said, why we were not there? I said, I don't know, maybe because you didn't contact the Russians or the organization of the St. Petersburg Forum. They should have called somebody from Thailand, and they didn't.
Right.
It's their problem. But they were pissed because they wanted to be part, and they were discussing at this round table in St. Petersburg. They were discussing business essentially, and this integration of the Eurasian Economic Union and ASEAN, because they have already a free trade agreement with Vietnam. They're going to clinch with Indonesia in the next few weeks maximum. And Thailand said, we also want a free trade agreement with the Russians. You see?
Yeah.
So this is an example of I wouldn't say BRICS related, but global majority related diversification of a region that the Americans always thought it was in their pocket.
Well,
they always Southeast Asia was in their pocket.
Yeah. Well, and that's I was this latest NATO move. As I recall, Thailand was not included in that, correct?
No, it was not. It was
which
not.
is which is sort of strange because I guess they had South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand as
Philippines.
And was the Philippines there too?
From Southeast Asia, the fifth columnists are Philippines because of this absolutely lousy Mark Jr. government that they have right now. If it was Clint Eastwood Duterte, this would not have happened.
Well, that's again, it was, as we said earlier with Yogi Berra, Philippines deja vu all over again with the Marcos
Deja
plan.
vu, but in Philippines, it always, Larry. Philippines is always, they have some periods of semi-independence. Then it's deja vu all over again. Now with Marcos Jr., exactly the same. And as ASEAN as a body, they have a very important office here. They don't like that because look, we always have a consensus approach. We do not antagonize everybody, but we hate foreign interference. Yeah. And what the Filipinos are doing with the Americans is the exact opposite of all these tenets,
Yeah. This within Thailand, you mentioned that the Deutsche Bank was empty. Are you seeing an increased presence of Chinese banks and a diminishment of Western banks?
My God. the mini mall across the street, Larry, the first thing that I noticed, a new ICBC branch. It was not there. The last time I was here was end of last year. And now you go to, and it's ultra, well, in one of those Chinese towers, across the street.
Yeah.
ICBC is huge here doing, helping deals in agricultural sector.
Okay, so it appears, in watching what's happened over just even the last 3 months, that BRICS as a reality is accelerating in a way that I think even Russia and China never anticipated. Is
You're
that a
right.
fair assessment or not?
It is extremely fair. And Lavrov himself, he's going on record practically all the time saying, look, we love the way it is developed, but it's too fast. He actually said that less than 2 months ago. Look, we cannot have new members this year. We need to accommodate the new ones, the 5 new ones. And Saudi Arabia, it's crazy because technically they are a member, but they're not going to their meetings.
Mm-hmm.
They're still hedging their bets. It's a very tricky situation because they are in, but they are not totally in. So first, essentially, I would say Lavrov, Ryabkov. Ryabkov is the Russian Sherpa for the BRICS.
Oh, is he?
I think
Okay.
you met him
Yeah.
in Moscow. He's an absolutely top diplomat, the same level as Lavrov. Said, look, our task this year is to accommodate everybody, and then we have our list is over 40 people who want to get 40 countries who need to get it. It's impossible. So the next batch is probably going to be 2025, maybe another 5. But and among this possible 5 next year, there are some really heavyweights: Indonesia, Vietnam, Kazakhstan, even Turkey. Can you imagine the internal debates?
Well,
And extra problems, Larry. I need to mention this because this is I learned some details about it which are very distressing. In fact, Yemen. When I was in Russia last month, before I came here, there were 2 Yemeni delegations in Moscow. One was a sort of, let's say, political delegation. They met with the Russian representative for the Middle East and Africa and all that. And the other one was a geoeconomic delegation. These are the guys that I spent one afternoon talking to. And they told me all the problems. For instance, they were having problems to set up a meeting with the Russian Ministry of Agriculture to explain what they wanted to do with Yemen. And Yemen needs food.
right.
They need grain. They need to escape blockade. It's a very, very serious situation. The famine in Yemen is not vanished; it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
So and obviously, after talking to them and then talking to the Russians, you understand that the Russians have to be very careful because they are in the middle of Saudi Arabia and Iran. So talking to Saudi Arabia means they have to address the Yemeni riddle. And now Saudi Arabia decided to, let's say, reinforce the blockade against Yemen. So now Yemen is fighting 2 wars, 2 different fronts. One, US, UK, because of what their protection of Palestine via going everybody who's sailing to Israel or under an Israeli banner or whatever, and Bab el-Mandeb and Red Sea, and the renewed Saudi Arabia offensive. So it's an extremely complex situation, but I could tell talking to this guy is a very well prepared guy, Larry. He's the special envoy of the Prime Minister of Yemen to deal with the BRICS universe.
Mm-hmm.
Very well prepared gentleman. He is an amazing guy. So he explained to me in detail all the problems. He gave me a list of what they wanted to propose to the Russians. Like, let's have a shipping line between your ports here and Hodeida port in Yemen. It will be beneficial for you. You can import some of our stuff, including excellent, probably the best coffee on the planet. And we need to import food from you, grains from you as well. And this thing is blocked by bureaucracy, you see?
Yeah.
An enormous.
Yeah, I was interviewed on Press TV, the Iranian TV station the other day.
Yes.
And they were asking, about this latest atrocity with the Zionists murdering all of these Palestinians who were supposed to be in a safe area.
They were in a safe zone.
Right. And so I made the point. I said, look, frankly, I said, this includes you too. You Iranians, you guys talk a good game, but you're not doing anything. I said, the only country in the region that's actually doing something to fight on behalf of the Palestinians are the Houthis in Yemen.
Right. Absolutely.
And they've actually been winning, if you want to define victory as not submitting to the United States. And the United States has been, despite its aircraft carrier and its ability to bomb sort of at will inside Yemen, has been unable to break the spirit and capability of the Yemenis to fight back.
Absolutely.
So it is, I said, it's remarkable. And it's sort of a damning indictment of, Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, Iraq, Syria. I give a little bit of a pass to because they're embroiled in that war, fighting off the West themselves with Russian assistance.
Especially Egypt, Larry. The role of Sisi is absolutely, wow. Cannot even describe it. It's ridiculous. Well, he was actually bought. In fact, the figure that we had a few months ago from the EU, 10 billion euros.
Really? Yeah.
Well, which is a lot. Egypt is a lot of money.
But and this is where I think what we're seeing is this that's taken place over the last 2 years. All the United States has left in its playbook is trying to either bribe people, buy them off with money or some other trinket, going back to like with the Native Americans, give them blankets or trinkets or something. Or we invade you. We try to attack you militarily. And it's created a real opening for both, I think, China and Russia on the diplomatic front. And BRICS becomes an element of that. I mean, I think we're really witnessing the emergence of a new, let's call it international architecture.
It is. And when you pair it with the SCO, wow, this latest SCO summit was something, this was really a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time that Putin on the record and for all the partners, not only the first time that he mentioned when that was his speech to Russian diplomats in Moscow, but this was in a multilateral setting in front of all the major partners in Eurasia when he talked about a new security architecture for Eurasia as a whole. And very, very important, he also said, look, this is open to European and NATO countries as well. We're not excluding anybody. There are no walls here. We are trying to redefine the concept of indivisibility of security, going back to those famous letters, that end of 2021. But now it's much more ambitious coming from Putin and from the Security Council. It's a new security architecture of Eurasia as a whole, with BRICS and SCO together. He didn't say that, but it's implicit. BRICS is part of it as well, considering the Arab-Persian components of BRICS, right? And obviously with the inclusion of willing members in Europe. And we can think right away, Hungary, Czech Republic, maybe Austria, Serbia. These are candidates to be part of this divisibility of security new arrangement. And I doubt if people in Washington, the usual suspects, understood that. I don't think so.
No, I guarantee it. You're right.
Yeah, because a few days later, Larry, we had the NATO summit. You saw what they proposed, to expand the war to go against China.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Literally, it's in the declaration. It's in the text of the declaration.
Yeah, no, it's madness. Now,
It's madness.
did you have a chance to talk? I understand that there were some representatives of the United Nations at the SCO. Is that correct?
That's a very good question. Guterres was there. I have to check again. Because Guterres was invited, and maybe he sent somebody.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to remember one of those photos. If he was
well, the reason
okay, yes, go ahead, please.
Just
Yes.
the reason I raise it is what I see as a potential thing happening is the United Nations is going to become irrelevant unless
It is already becoming.
it is almost it's there in that status. But as long as the Security Council continues to be dominated by this European colonial legacy, where France and England get to have the veto power, ignoring the countries like whether it's India, Nigeria, Brazil, other, that what the Russians and Chinese are doing are creating actually a club that everybody will want to become a member of. And the United States and Europe's going to find itself left out.
And I'm sure people in DC who, let's say, we cannot generalize, of course. There are people in DC who are knowledgeable in terms of foreign policy, even if they keep the exceptionalist view. When they look at that, they can see that they are being expelled from Eurasia. And the process is very, very fast, because this merger of BRICS and the SCO, it will happen within the next 2 years maximum.
Right.
It will. It's all converging. And in fact, all these multilateral organizations are converging. For instance, Putin says on the record now, virtually every month, if not every 2 or 3 weeks, we need to coordinate sustainable development projects between the Eurasian Economic Union and the Belt and Road Initiative, the New Silk Roads.
Mm-hmm.
What is this if not integration of Eurasia as a whole? So, you have an idea for, a project like what the Chinese are trying to do, the railway, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan. Russia could be part of it as well. They have the know-how, so they can coordinate projects like that. And they can even divide projects by areas. Okay, well, we'll take care of this area, you take care of that area. Absolutely possible. So Eurasian Economic Union, BRICS, and Shanghai Cooperation Organization, they are merging little by little, and with actual projects, not just ideology and not just summits.
Well, in fact, the West, particularly, in the United States where I live, completely clueless about what's going on. If you step back and look at it objectively, like take space programs, for example. India's got one, China's got one, Russia they're all out there at the top of the, it used to be it was the United States and the Soviet Union. Now the United States can't even get its astronauts back from space, from the space station.
Yes.
And so, while the Chinese have landed on the other side of the moon, and India's had successful launches, and Russia is the preeminent one in terms of hauling people back and forth from the space station. So the combination, what we're talking about is not just that political shift, but the economic shift too, because what the West is, it's a financialized economy, and it's predicated upon selling services overseas.
Exactly.
I think we're headed.
Powers are in deep debt, all of them.
Yeah, I mean,
France is beyond broke. It's a taboo to talk about this in Paris. Everybody knows that France is totally broke. Well, and there's no way out because they are losing clients on a monthly or sometimes weekly basis.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, because and we'll close out with this because we're coming up on an hour, and I don't want to keep you up past your bedtime.
No, It's 8:30 here, Larry. Things have not
Oh,
even started.
time to go to dinner.
No, but the thing is that dinner here is early.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So
very
it's
early. People go to dinner at just like it reminds me of California. People go to dinner at 6:30 p.m.
oh my God. Yeah.
Just like California. Yeah, yeah.
You and I are used to sort of the Latino,
I am not.
Spanish.
So sometimes I have nothing, so I have to go to I have to check my fridge, what's left, because everything is closed.
Oh boy.
Huh?
No, that's not good. But the uh, is there a growing recognition or reluctance to start buying, the consulting services from the West and
Yes.
recognizing that they may no longer be relevant to what the people in Asia are experiencing now and the future that they see coming?
No, because the best definition, Larry, was it's still Eric Lee's. Eric Lee was at the St. Petersburg Forum.
Right.
And there was a dinner afterward. You were that.
Yeah, I met Eric.
You were that dinner. So Eric Lee once again repeated his, I would say, absolutely classic formulation that the West is a small garden with high walls.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they inflicted this high wall construction upon themselves.
Yeah.
So they are a rotten garden with those huge walls that obviously, we are protected from the jungle. No, you are totally isolated from the real world. This is what it is. So no wonder Eurasia, and now starting Southeast Asia, especially this past year or so, it's a sea change in terms of perception of the West, even here. The Chinese, they look at the West, they see a bunch of barbarians, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
If you talk to Chinese intellectuals and Chinese academics are a very high level, they dismiss the West in block now. Of course, they totally appreciate a wonderful restaurant in Paris, the La Dolce Vita in Italy, but it's different. We're talking about politics and geoeconomics. These, this is the past. We are the future. And when you come here and you see the Asian megalopolises and you see the dynamic drive everywhere, like everything you're talking about China grew 5% this first semester. And then you open the Wall Street Journal and say, in this past 3 months, they only grew 4.9%. No, idiots. The point is that they grew 5% in 6 months. And they will grow another 5% in the next 6 months. And this is what they are discussing right now in Beijing, how to make that happen.
Yeah.
So, economic dynamism is around here.
Well, you play a very important role, and not trying to blow smoke up your skirt, but
I'm too old. I'm too old for that, Larry.
yeah, you and I are you and I are the same age. We're about 3-4 months apart. We
Exactly.
talked
We're
about
the
that.
same age. We've seen it. We've seen it. Not we've seen it all. We've seen it almost all.
Yeah, well, we're watching a transformation. The world we knew,
Yes.
now we're witnessing the birth of something new, and most of the West doesn't get it. So I think I want to thank you for being one of the few ones who's, you're sort of like the prophet Jeremiah up on the wall trying to warn people. And remember, they didn't receive him too well either,
No, you know what, Larry? Really, I am a student. I still have the mentality of when I was in high school, and I wanted to. What is this Gengis Khan guy? What was he doing? So this mentality. You want to learn, and you want to learn from these larger than life characters. And I really started to learn deeper when I moved to live here. I came to Asia 30 years ago. I moved here in 1994. And I learned Asia from the inside.
Yeah.
So after 30 years, wow, this was probably the best move that I made with my life, but it's, and I'm still learning.
Yeah, well,
You know,
that's
so we have to keep this open perspective, you know.
why. Listen, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to do this.
Thank you. Thank
We're gonna do it again too, because
Yes,
we'll
absolutely.
have to catch up on the progress of the war in Ukraine and what that means for NATO, and you got a lot of dynamic things going on. But God bless you, my friend.
And I'm going to ask you a few questions, Larry, especially about what will happen to NATO if we have Trump 2.0.
Yeah, that'll be the topic of our next discussion.
Could be the topic of our next. Okay, deal. Total deal.
All right, my friend.